video, we will look at the different types of employment contracts a business may offer a new employee. We will look in detail at full-time, part-time, and temporary contracts and analyse both the benefits and the drawbacks of each. So, let's start at the very beginning. What is a contract? Well, a contract is like a promise. It is an understanding, a deal between two or more people or businesses to do certain things. Each person or organisation who agrees to do something in this contract is called a party. A contract says what you and the other person or organisation have agreed to do. It is a written list of the promises that you have made. You will likely get a contract soon if you don't have one already. A mobile phone contract, a PlayStation Plus subscription, or even a mortgage to buy a house. When you start a job, you will most likely receive a written contract detailing the terms of your employment. This document will state what you will do for your employer and what they will do for you. All of the best contracts are in writing and officially signed by both parties. But you should note that even if you are not given a written contract when you start your job, or if you hire somebody for your own business and you don't give them one, this does not mean that a contract doesn't exist. According to UK employment law, the arrangement for you to pay someone in return for their work is enough in itself to constitute a contract of employment. We will look specifically at everything you need to know about employment law in another video, but let's now look in more detail at the different types of employment contract that might be used. With full-time permanent contracts, employees usually work 5 days a week, for at least 35 hours in total. Traditionally, many jobs were full-time contracts, including teaching, nursing, office work, factory workers, and many other types of roles. And then you have part-time contracts, where workers generally work for less than 35 hours a week, maybe 1, 2, or 3 days a week, or a smaller number of hours but spread over the whole 5 days. Part-time employment is found in many types of job roles, particularly in industries where flexibility is required, such as retail. Shops need people to work shifts based on how busy the store might be. Or in hospitality, such as fast food, pubs and cinemas, where a greater number of people may be employed who can work at the busiest times of the week. Part-time work can be very flexible for both the employer and the employees, and many people choose to work part-time to fit around other commitments, perhaps caring for their children or other family members, or around their studies, perhaps even around another part-time job or running their own business. Some businesses allow what we call job sharing. This is where a job role that would normally be filled by one person on a full-time contract is shared between two part-time employees. For example, one working 2 days a week and the other working the other 3 days a week. Now, on to temporary contracts. This is where staff are hired by a business for only a specific period of time, or at least they don't give them a permanent contract. This is often the case in the retail sector during busy times like the Christmas season. Many employers may take on additional staff from October through to December to help meet the needs of the business, and these staff will just no longer be needed once this time is up. Another type of employment you may need to be aware of is the 0 hours contract, where an employee does not actually have any set hours of work. In fact, they do not even have a guarantee that they will be offered work from week to week. The business will offer them work only as and when they need them, making it very flexible for the employers, but very uncertain for employees, as they don't know how much work they may get in any given week, and they may not even get any hours at all. Many things may impact the type of workers that a business employs, and the employment contract that both parties agree to. It will often depend on a combination of the needs of the business and the requirements of the employees. To all the teachers out there, show all of these videos without any ads and gain access to our growing library of over 500 teaching worksheets. Why not visit BizzWizard.co.uk to find out more? Before we introduce this video's main example, you need to understand that sometimes there will be no contract of employment. A business may choose to hire a freelancer or somebody who is self-employed. Let's quickly explore both of these concepts in a little more detail. Freelance work is where a worker goes from job to job for different companies, perhaps taking on several jobs at once for different businesses or clients. Examples of freelance workers might include photographers, actors, farm or construction labourers. Freelancers are not employees of the companies they work for. They work for themselves. This can be good for the worker, as it gives them the freedom to choose what projects they want to take on. However, it can be very unpredictable for the freelancer. Freelancers might not find any work one week and then be swamped with too much work the following week. It can be very insecure if the worker needs to be sure of a regular income. And finally, let's look at self-employed people. Freelancers are, of course, a type of self-employed worker, but they tend to do jobs for lots of different companies, rather than seeing themselves as running a business. But often, somebody who is self-employed is an actual business owner. A good example here would be a taxi driver who owns their own taxi driving business, or an electrician who works for themselves rather than being employed by somebody else's company. Businesses of all types often like to use self-employed workers because they only pay them for the work they actually do, and they don't have to enter into any long-term employment contracts. Bring this video and over 100 more to life with fun, interactive games, quizzes, and case studies. Why not try the first 25 completely free by visiting BizzWizard.co.uk. So, now that we have looked at the different types of employment contract, let's apply what we've learnt to this video's main example. This is Denise Thomas, and she is the branch manager at Medimend. Medimend is a UK high street chemist chain, selling everything from medication to skincare, makeup and fragrances. They are well known for their annual Christmas gift promotions and very popular with people looking for last-minute Christmas presents for their friends and family. Denise's shop is based in a small town, so she only has 2 staff, one full-time and one part-time. Christmas is fast approaching, and Denise knows that she is going to need another member of staff as the shop will be much busier than usual. But she has to decide whether that person will be a permanent or a temporary employee. Denise is worried that if she takes on a temporary member of staff, they may not be very committed to working at Medimend, and that a full-time employee might be more loyal. On the other hand, she is worried that if she offers someone a permanent job, there may not be enough work for them to actually do after Christmas, and her store's wages bill will be too high, impacting the store's profits. She decides to talk to her regional manager about the pros and cons of hiring a permanent employee, or instead taking on a temporary one. They start by looking at the advantages of choosing to go with a temporary employee. When a business like Medimend employs staff on temporary contracts, it gives them the flexibility of employing people exactly when they need them, especially at those busy times of year. Once the busy time is over, they no longer need to employ these temporary workers, as their contract is over. It was only temporary. Employing people around the demands of the business means that there is less time wasted. People will be kept busy, rather than waiting for jobs to do, meaning that staff can be more productive. It also means that the business might reduce employment costs, as they are only paying for the hours required, rather than paying full-time salaries. You need to be careful here though, because sometimes the hourly wage of temporary staff might actually be higher than that of permanent employees. Flexibility works both ways, so as well as being good for the employer, it can also be good for employees. Some people prefer to work on a temporary contract to fit in with other parts of their life. This flexibility can be very attractive to potential workers, and a company can find that it can receive applications from a wide range of potential employees who may not be in a position to take on a full-time contract, such as students or maybe working parents. Each of the video courses over at BizzWizard.co.uk also includes an interactive business case study that applies the knowledge learnt to a real-world scenario. There are over 1,000 multiple-choice questions, each with detailed feedback, which tests students' understanding of the content. Why not visit BizzWizard.co.uk to find out more? Despite the advantages of employing temporary workers, many companies still choose not to employ them. Let's look at some of the reasons why. Some workers who take temporary jobs may only do so because there aren't suitable permanent jobs currently available, and when a contracted position comes up elsewhere, they may decide to just leave for a guaranteed income. As there is only a temporary contract with the employee, they may be able to leave without even giving notice, which can lead to operational difficulties. Some businesses find that staff retention and loyalty is better among permanent workers than temporary workers. If staff turnover is high, then a business may find that it loses skills and that it needs to spend a lot of money on staff training. Every time a temporary employee leaves, another one will have to be trained to replace them. Now that Denise and her manager have explored the advantages and disadvantages of employing a temporary member of staff, they moved on to looking at permanent employment contracts. There are lots of advantages to hiring full-time permanent employees. One of the key ones being that these employees will often feel pride in their position within your business. They often get satisfaction out of being part of a team and working somewhere they feel comfortable and that they have job security. The hourly wage for a full-time employee will often be less than that of a temporary worker. This is also the same with part-time workers. This is because there is more job security for that employee, so often their hourly rate will be lower. Full-time staff will often become team members that you trust and who you can always depend on when you need them, much more so than temporary workers, but even possibly more than part-time workers. Let's face it, they are usually always there. Full-time staff are often considered to be more loyal. They are unlikely to leave all of a sudden without notice and will often discuss the reasons they are thinking of leaving before they even start to look at other opportunities. Remember, some permanent workers will do the same exact role for decades without ever showing signs of jumping ship and moving to another business. The final advantage that we will consider is that a business does not have to continually train new staff on how they like things done. As we've discussed, if staff turnover is high, as it can sometimes be with temporary staff, lots of training is needed. With full-time contracts, if the same person has worked for you full-time for 20 years, they will likely know your business almost as well as you do and need minimal training. So, full-time employees sound fantastic, right? But there are some key downsides to permanent contracts. Firstly, it is simply more costly. Even if the hourly wage of the temporary staff is actually higher, a permanent contracted employee has additional costs such as employment benefits, training, resources, and much more. Successful businesses will invest in their people, and as with all investments, it will come at a cost. When it comes to permanent employees, the hiring and firing process is simply more extensive, and this can lead to additional paperwork and again additional costs. And finally, if the business experiences slow times and does not provide enough work to keep the permanent employees busy, then they are paying for work that isn't actually being done, because it isn't there to do. Now Denise has all the information she needs to make her decision. She has decided that a temporary contract is the best option, as there simply isn't enough work for a permanent staff member to do after the busy Christmas season. As we have discussed, this would lead to additional unnecessary costs, which could therefore impact the store's profits. But she could also have probably justified the other option of a permanent contract in this situation. And this is often the same in your exam. When constructing an answer on this topic, and many others like it, there is no right or wrong answer. One type of contract is not necessarily better than another. It's all about how you justify your decision, how you back it up with all of your reasons, why you have chosen this particular option. If you do get a question on this topic, remember to think back to the advantages and the disadvantages that we have discussed in this video before making any decisions. This has been the BizzWizard. See you in the next video.